Bhai Balmeet Singh.
Khalsa Amandeep Singh ji said some kind words about me, but the reality is that I am nothing special. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a leader. I'm not a visionary. I'm just someone who is concerned, no different than everyone else in this room. And these next 20 minutes, I want to talk about something that is not my topic. It's not something that I'm going to be speaking to you guys about or lecturing you about. This is something that we all are working on together. This time is your time. And what I want to focus on is unity, ekta. It's a word that we hear a lot, and especially when in relation to 1984, it's a word we need to start hearing more. Today, one of the fundamental problems that I've heard in our fund is that we have too many jathedars and not enough sevadars. Where are we today? Before we can talk about what happened in '84 and what's happening today, let's focus on what are we doing now. If you look at a map, you have to know where you are in order to know where you're going. So what divisions do we see today? Especially with 1984, this is very pertinent, because when we talk about what happened, as you heard the victims' testimonials, and you saw the video, one thing that came out is that who asked that woman that was raped in police detention centers how many baniya she did in the morning? Who asked that 6-year-old child who had kerosene poured on his chest, who was burned alive, whether he ate meat or whether he was vegetarian? Who asked those people who were pulled out of their house and they were killed and tortured what Jathabandi they belonged to? These are divisions that we've created amongst ourselves. When we talk about 1984, we have these individual victims. We also have another victim. That victim is our Panth. That victim is Ekta. And that's a victim that we've created ourselves. The government isn't responsible for that. We are. What is the vision? If you look at our Nishan Sahib, we have one Nishan Sahib, one Panth. Regardless of what Jathabandi you belong to, regardless of what your views are, regardless of your individual interpretations, there's one thing we all have in common, and that is that ekta, and that's what we need to strive towards. So what is ekta? It's been defined as unity, oneness, and harmony. How do we create that in our lives today? One thing that's thrown around a lot these days is everyone cares. We know that. There's a reason why you're sitting in this room. It's because you care. It's because you know there's problems in our fund, and you want to do something to solve them. Well, what's the first step? Everyone talks about being an activist. An activist is not one who says that the river is dirty. An activist is one who goes out and cleans it. It's time we stop focusing on our divisions. We stop focusing on blaming others, and we start focusing on how are we going to solve the problem. There's a story I'd like to share. There were 3 people that were going out and they were hiking. They were camping near a river. And while they were in the river, they noticed a dead baby floating on this river. They looked at this dead baby, and they said, what is this baby doing there? As they looked at it, they noticed another baby drowning in the river. They jumped in to go save this baby. And another baby came up, and another, and another. And as they pulled out each baby, one of them stopped and said, wait a minute, where are these babies coming from? The point of this story is stop focusing on these systems that we have, these systemic problems. Stop focusing on these small issues that have no say for us. Let's focus on what is the root cause. Where are our problems coming from? And how do we bridge those gaps? What is our inspiration? As Sikhs, ultimately, our inspiration isn't people like you or me. It comes from the perfection. The perfection is the Guru. We're all imperfect. We have our limitations, but ultimately this is where we draw our inspiration. And one of the lines that really stood out to me is a line that we hear every day. It's from Anand Sahib by Guru Amar Das Sahib, the 35th Pauri. And the line is, "E sarira meria, ais jag mein aaye ke, kya tud karam kamaya? Ki karam kamaya tud sarira, ja tu jag mein aaya." So think about this. Take a minute to think and reflect. Why are we sitting here today? What is our purpose? Why are we here in this world? And now that we're here, what are our actions going to do? When we look at our past, we often glorify it. One thing that comes out is Anand Sahib was written, composed by Guru Amar Das Sahib. Let's look at his life. What was his example? Guru Amar Das Sahib was a devout Hindu for most of his life. He came to Sikhi through a woman, through Bibi Amro, he was in his 60s when this happened. He heard the Bani being recited, and he stood out and he said, "What is these words? Why did they touch me?" What was his need? He spent his entire life living as a devout Hindu. He had his family, he had his shop, he had everything he could want in life, and yet he felt there was a gap. There was something missing from his life. The reason we're sitting here today is because we realize that there is something missing from our life. That gap that we have, how do we fulfill it? His way was through seva, service. And this is a very, very interesting example for me, because this is a man who learned about Sikhi through a woman, and then who went on to serve a younger man. Guru Angad Dev Sahib was much younger than him. So this is a man who spent his life in service of someone who is 20, 30 years younger than him. It's bridging all the gaps that we have today. We have so many social barriers that we put up. Our gurus eradicated those examples. So what is our life's focus? What should we be looking at? How do we bring that service into our life? Ultimately, when we talk about a panth, when we talk about unity, it's not just an abstract concept. These aren't just words that we like to throw around. Our panth is made up of individuals. Individuals like you and me. This is no different. The only way for us to be united is for each of us to take that first step. And how do we do that? Some concrete ways that we can do that is love. This is the underlying principle of Sikhi, and yet it's something that's so often forgotten. We're so busy in our petty squabbles day to day that we forget what our focus should be on. We should seek common ground. The first thing we do when we meet someone, we say, "Hi, my name is so-and-so,